Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this introduction to the OCPP Plugfest. Today I will be introducing you to the OCPP Plugfests in general, and also looking to the OCPP 1.6 Plugfest that's upcoming in more detail. I'll be using the following agenda. So I'll start off with the general introduction, then go to the Plugfest details. In this upcoming Plugfest, we have 3 new additions to the Plugfest. Which I will also discuss. So these are the new connectivity testing approach. We have some additional testing options, and we have, as we have called it, a Plugfest Schedule, specifically for OCPP 1.6 combined with ISO 15118. And as Martijn just indicated, after that we have room for questions. But first, Plugfest in general. So what is a Plugfest? So for OCPP Plugfest, we organize Plugfest for interoperability testing between charging stations and charging station management systems, CSMSs. And the idea is to go for interop testing between different implementations. We organize those about 4 or 5 times per year. And what we usually do, we switch between the versions OCPP 1.6 and OCPP 2.1. So the next one is OCPP 1.6. You can see on the right side of this slide an overview of recent Plugfest. So you can see that they are alternating every few months. So we try to do 4 or 5 per year. So based on this schema, you can already predict that we will probably have another one for OCPP 2.1 in April and May. And the next OCPP 1.6 will probably be somewhere in July. During a Plugfest, we organize round-robin testing. So that means that we have time slots of 2 hours, where within those 2 hours you'll be testing with a testing partner. And the idea is that every time slot you are assigned a new testing partner, so that you have the chance to test with as many implementations as possible. And for all these implementations, you can test for interoperability, and perhaps they have different features, so you can have as many different tests as possible. So that's what we try to achieve for you. What interesting to explain is how this process works in more detail. So if you want to participate in a Plugfest, I'll just guide you to the steps that you have to take. So the first step is that you will find a news item on the OCA website, or via a newsletter or whatever. And via the website or the newsletter, you will find the link to the registration on the website, where we ask you for the participants, so the people joining, their email address, and the time slots that you want to join. So you're not mandatory to join all time slots, and also the supported functionality. So for OCPP 1.6, we ask for an overview of the supported feature profiles. For OCPP 2.1, we ask for the implemented functional blocks, so that we can sort of take it into account in our planning, so that you have the most efficient testing. So once you have registered on the website, you will automatically receive a registration confirmation. And after that, we will ask you for some additional relevant information. So the first thing we always ask is for the connectivity. So we ask you to fill the connectivity sheet with the appropriate data that can be used for testing. And of course, we ask you to confirm your participation as well. In the week before the Plugfest, so that's the next step on this slide, that will be explained later, but then we have a connectivity test, which we introduced newly in this upcoming Plugfest. So I will be talking about it later in this presentation. But the idea is that after this connectivity test, once you have passed that test, then we will add you as a participant to the Plugfest channel in Slack. For those of you that are not familiar with Slack, that's a communication application which you can use for direct messaging or group chats, and for one-on-one video or phone calls. So you're added to the Plugfest channel in Slack, and of course, you're based on this the test. If you have passed the connectivity test, we also add you to the planning. So you will be added to the planning, the round-robin planning that is used during the Plugfest. So that's an important step, this connectivity test. If everything goes well, then you can proceed, and then the actual Plugfest date arrives. Now, the idea is that when it's time for your time slot for which you have registered, that you are prepared, you're logged on to Slack, and then for each test slot, the OCA host that's online will post the planning in the Plugfest channel, usually about half an hour before the actual test slot start. And the idea is what you see there is an overview of the companies that will be testing with each other in the next test slot. So there you can find your next test partner, the company name, and we also provide a sheet with all the company names and the names of the participants, the testers themselves. And so you can find the people you're testing with in the sheet, and then you can search them on Slack, and you can contact them via direct message, or you can call them, whatever you prefer. And then you're prepared. So when the actual time slot starts, you can start testing. Now, of course, you can always encounter an issue, or you can have a question. So during during the Plugfest, we always have multiple OCA hosts that are available in Slack, and you can send them a direct message. So we will sort of sign on and off, so you can see which host is currently active. But you can ask questions there in Slack via direct message. We always prefer direct messages because sometimes they can get lost in the general channel if it's a bit busy, or in the Plugfest channel. So we ask you to send us a direct message. And we also have, as an alternative, we have a GoToMeeting audio channel open during the entire Plugfest. So you can just log on to that, and then you can just talk to one of the hosts. We are always there's always somebody listening on that audio channel. Zooming in a bit more on the experience that we have in the past, is that we've seen a few things that we've seen that we see that there's easy making mistakes in. So one of the things we always advise, that once you've registered and we are confirming everything, please make sure that you are forced that you register, but also that when you confirm, that you really confirm with the right test slots. So we see some manual errors there sometimes. And of course, also check the names and the email addresses of your participants in the sheet, so you can also, because if those are wrong, then of course people cannot find you via Slack. And when you're joining, some people want to join with both a central system and a charging station. Well, that's of course possible. If you join with both systems at the same time, we always ask you to register based on whether you can test in parallel or not. If you can test both systems in parallel, so basically you have two testers or two testing teams ready, then we ask you to register twice. So for each implementation you can register. If you can only test one at a time, then we ask you just only test once, and you will be registered as one team. And then based on the availability of testing partners, we will add you to the planning as a central system or a charging station implementation. In the event that some test partners are not available for the time slot in the planning, of course, never hoped it happens, but it could happen, then we always ask you to report it to the current OCA host. Sometimes we have people that are, they started testing and they are having a lot of success, so they want to do more test slots than they actually registered for, so they always ask us. So sometimes when you have a no-show on your testing partner, you might have somebody waiting that is eager to test, so always let us know. Of course, it can also be that you find a testing partner yourself. That's fine, but of course, we also make the planning based on previous test slots, so we always try to make sure that you test with as many partners as possible. So if you find a new testing partner yourself, please mention it to us, so we can register that as well, so we can prevent you being planned in again in one of the future test slots later in the planning. So this is a bit of how the Plugfest in general works. Then, of course, we have an upcoming Plugfest, so that's an OCPP 1.6 Plugfest. So this is the overview of that. So we will organize it on February 2nd and 3rd. So sometimes we have on-site and online events, but due to circumstances, as you will understand, we only have an online Plugfest now. We have made it round the clock event again, as the last few Plugfests. So that means that we are well, about 48 hours round the clock available, and we have test slots available. So for each time zone, you can select your what's most convenient for you. And for the communication, as also described in the steps, in the separate steps, before the Plugfest, we will primarily be emailing about the required information. And then, of course, there's the Slack channels. And during the Plugfest, we have the GoToMeeting channel for support questions. And during the testing, we have the direct Slack channel, either chat or either audio for your testing partner. So here on the right side, as an illustration, you can see a bit of an overview of how this round robin planning looks like. This is an overview of an entire Plugfest. But yeah, based on the amount of companies available in the time slot, it's usually a bit more compressed. But this just gives you a bit of an impression about the planning we are making during the Plugfest, and that is done published in the Slack channel, so you can see who you're testing with. As mentioned, it's a round the clock event, so these are the time slots that we are that are available for testing. So on the right side, you see the number of hosts that will be available during the test slots. Of course, not everybody at the same time. We are all in the middle column. We are all located in UTC +1. So we included these test slots in other time zones a bit for reference. So of course, you always have to look exactly at your own time zone. So we have just made some examples here. And the idea of this is that we can we give you an overview so that if you are eager to test with somebody from another continent, so for example, if you are from Europe and you really want to test with somebody from the United States, the other way around, then you sort of get an impression of what's an interesting test slot to register for, which is both convenient for you as well as the continent you want to test with. And the host during the next Plugfest will be the names you can see here. So Mark van Dijk, which you will see it answering the questions. Myself, Thijs van Wijk, Milan Jansen, and Remy Keizers. So they will be the hosts during this upcoming Plugfest. Now, as mentioned, we have 3 new additions to this Plugfest, which we based on the requests from our participants from previous Plugfest. So the first one which we have newly introduced is the connectivity testing approach, which we have changed. So in previous Plugfest, we shared connectivity information via the connectivity sheet, which everybody can access, where everybody can provide the connectivity information to the testing systems so that all the participants are able to prepare a test session. In practice, what we have seen is that there's a lot of time at the beginning of test slots that's lost for connectivity issues or connection issues. So especially for the less mature implementations. So based on this, we try to improve this next Plugfest. So what we have added to the Plugfest is actually a connectivity test in advance. So what we will again ask you to provide your connectivity information in advance, as we did previous Plugfest. But now, the week before the Plugfest, there will be a connectivity test from OCA with all the registered participants. The idea is that we will contact you for setting up a WebSocket connection between the participant and one of the OCA testing systems. For the CSMS testing system, we have CSMS of ELAD available, which we will be using. And to test as a charging station, we will be using the OCPP compliance testing tool, the latest version. That is, of course, OCPP compliant. So we will be using that for testing the connection. Now, some exceptions occur sometimes. So there are some systems that do not have the possibility to test without security. In that case, we always test a minimum security level. But it's also very important for us to know in advance. So we urge you also to really make sure that you provide the correct security information in the connectivity sheet, because that can make life easier for planning and to prevent companies testing that with each other which have incompatible security profiles. Now, if the connectivity test is successful, so we can set up a connection. So we will not be testing any messages or whatever, just setting up the connection and pinging each other and maybe one message, but that's it. Then we, if that is successful, then you've passed the test and you'll be added to the planning for the round robin testing. Of course, we need some time to execute this test, and we also, of course, allow for retesting. So to facilitate it, we enter registration for the upcoming Plugfest on January 22nd. So to give you a sort of an overview of the schedule for the next Plugfest, the registration ends on the 22nd. That's on a Friday. Then we have connectivity testing with the registered CSMSs. That will be done on the Monday, on the 25th. And Tuesdays on the 26th, we have the charging station connectivity testing. On the 28th, that's Thursday, we have the retesting of the implementations if we couldn't get it up and running on the first 2 days. And then after that, the planning is made, and the Plugfest for completeness is also mentioned here on February 2nd and 3rd. Okay, so that's the first new thing on the upcoming Plugfest. The second addition to the Plugfest is that we will offer an additional testing options. We have an additional testing option consisting of 2 options actually. We had some requests for testing with the OCPP compliance testing tool. So what we will offer in the next Plugfest, we will give you the opportunity to have a test slot with the OCPP compliance testing tool. We make a distinction between companies that already have it or do not have it. So if you do not have the OCTT yet, you'll give the opportunity to test within technical editor, an OCA technical editor with the testing tool, which makes you, you can get familiar with the testing tool that is also used in the certification program. So you can get a first impression of the tool and also of the readiness of your own implementation. For companies that already have the OCTT, we give you an opportunity to have a test lab with one of the testing laboratories. So OCA has a number of test laboratories that do the certification. So those are the official labs for the certification program. So you can request a time slot for that, and then you can test with one of the laboratories, and you can get a bit familiar with how certification testing works. And of course, you have the opportunity to ask them all kinds of questions about the certification testing or the program or about the logistics or whatever. And that's something we will offer in the next Plugfest. If you want to register for that, we will ask you to, of course, register on the website and also to send a separate email to Mark van Dijk, indicating that you actually want to be added to the planning of this additional testing option. So this is not part of the normal registration, but if you want to use this option, you have to send a separate email. Then the last addition to the upcoming Plugfest, we added a Plugfest Schedule, as we have called it, and that is a chance to test with OCPP 1.6 combined with ISO 15008. So for those of you that are familiar with the matter, but also for those of you that know OCA, we have published an application note in September of last year with the title Using ISO 15008 Plug and Charge with OCPP 1.6. Where, as the title explains, we provide an application note that if you want to use ISO 15008 with plug and charge with OCPP 1.6, we explain there how to do it, and we hope to provide a way of implementation to be interoperable with each other if they all use that application note. It has a number of use cases. So for the certificate installation, we have certificate management, and of course the eventual the plug and charge authorization itself. So those will be you can test that as well. So yeah, for reference, the URL of the Plugfest is here on the slide, and you can easily find it on our website at the white paper and application notes section. As mentioned, we will do it as a sort of a side event to the Plugfest. And what we plan to do, we will also plan round-robin testing for that during the second day of the Plugfest, so on February 3rd. And what we will do as OCA, we will also participate with the CMS that has the full application of the implementation. So where a technical editor will do the testing with you. And of course, everybody that wants to participate will just be planned in the round-robin testing slots. So we will use the same test slots of 2 hours. And yeah, as mentioned, those slots are then well specifically for the OCPP 1.6 ISO 15118 testing. So the idea is that those are specifically for that, so that we start off with that and not start testing everything else. So those are really reserved for that. And we'll make sure that we have companies testing that both have the implementation for that. Again, this is something to register for separately. So of course, everybody has to register via the website for the regular Plugfest. But if you want to participate in this addition to the Plugfest, so this Plugfest special, then we ask you again to send an email. And in this email, we also ask you to list the supported use cases so that we can take it into account in our planning to make sure that you can test as efficient as possible for the ISO 15118 OCPP 1.6 application. So that was my that was the final addition to the Plugfest. So that was what I had to say for today. So then it's time for questions. So I'll give it back to you, Martijn.